This is Chris Osterman, Mayor. Welcome to the Abilene City Commission. This is a special meeting for September 23rd, 2020. First, due to COVID-19 and social distancing, we are encouraging viewing all meetings on the live stream City of Abilene's YouTube page. First order of business is roll call.
Mayor Osterman?
Here.
Commissioner Ryan?
Here.
Commissioner Marshall?
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Here.
Commissioner Witt is present via remote access.
And just, thank you. Just to advise, Commissioner Witt is by phone. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go to public comments and communications, I want to remind the commissioners, if you're using a Facebook page, it should be used to encourage or enlighten the public with factual information. It becomes a problem if it's not. Social media is questionable because it can allure to the Open Meetings Act, and also social media can become a public record. My responsibility as mayor is to have a special responsibility to help the members of the governing body move in the same direction as a team. And
Madam Mayor, could I respond to that?
Sure, yes.
I just want to say that with 48 hours notice, I felt it was pretty detrimental to get the ordinance out in the public. And that is the only information we had at the time. So I felt it was very important for the public to be informed on what was going on. So
I understand that, but you alluded that I was the one that called the special meeting, and that we do that as a team. So I got calls the next day chewing me out for bringing that up, and it was never corrected on your Facebook. So it made me the one, and I was threatened. So you have to be very careful on that, because you stated the mayor is the one that called the special meeting, and it made me look like I was the responsible one to approve it. And I got calls, terrible calls the next day. So I understand what you're saying, but you have to look at the other side, what happened.
and obviously I never intended for you to deal with that, and I apologize that you did. Technically, the mayor does call special meetings. That's why I worded it like that.
But those people didn't understand that.
Right.
They thought I did it on my solo, and that was not the fact. And the other reason we wanted to have 48 hours, quickly as possible, we need to deal with this. The longer you let it go, the more people will get upset. And there's some other information you'll learn later, what happened, and I think it will enlighten you. Excuse me. It will enlighten you. Maybe this wasn't actually brought to us at the best time. So, all right. And we will ask for Aaron Martin, city attorney, to advise us how to proceed for public comments and communications.
Thank you, Mayor Osterman. This is Aaron Martin, city attorney. I just have a few preliminary housekeeping items to speak to. The first being, we are, of course, operating in an open meeting of the governing body, and we are operating in a somewhat modified form of the meeting, by which attendance has been limited, not restricted, but limited. And because of that, the Attorney General has provided guidance for how we must conduct the meeting for the benefit of those who are not in the room and may be watching on TV or on the YouTube channel. So one of the first items that I wanted to mention was we're required anytime someone is speaking to first state your name and your role or your title. which we've been doing pretty well, but just a friendly reminder on that subject. And lastly, pursuant to the Attorney General's Kansas Open Meetings Act regulations applicable to this meeting, we are required to describe at the beginning of the meeting whether public comment will be allowed and what process will be allowed to identify any individual who wishes to comment if permitted. And I wanted to mention that namely because in the notice that went out in advance of this meeting, we did take the opportunity to indicate that spacing and seating may be limited depending on turnout. And to the extent that there were individuals that were not planning to come in until invited or until told they could, I thought it'd be useful to have the governing body briefly discuss, or take however much time you need, the process for allowing public comment. And then once that is agreed upon, state that, and we can proceed accordingly.
Okay. Is there a limit of how many people can have public comments?
No, there is no requirement applicable to public comment. On the spectrum of permitted public comment, you could allow no public comment, or you could allow as much public comment as you wish to allow for any period of time. And I'm not presently aware of any rules or procedures previously approved by the City Commission addressing that issue, but perhaps someone else may be. So it would simply be a matter of your preference, as this is your meeting.
Commissioner Schaefer, we used to, and I don't know if it's a rule or a policy, but 3 minutes was per speaker. And
Commissioner Marshall, it was 3 minutes, but if we allow people in today, I think we should make it a little less, perhaps, just in essence of time.
yeah,
2
I
minutes?
don't
I mean,
disagree.
I personally don't have a problem with people coming in one at a time, but we would definitely need to limit the speaking time.
I don't disagree with a shorter time, but I just was stating for
Right.
people that we used to do that.
Right. We sure did.
3 minutes.
What do you think?
Well, I'm not for sure what is, without seeing a group and who wants to talk, it's a little hard to make a judgment on that. I would think 20 at 2 minutes, that's 40 minutes. Is that, is that reasonable? Or we go through the 20 and then there's a few more, we include them, or what do you want to do?
So Commissioner Ryan, Mr. Martin, is there I guess with limiting the number, that kind of perked my ear up. Is there an issue with that if we didn't pre-state the number of people we were allowing?
It would be lawful to limit both the duration of speakers and the quantity of speakers. Of course, the primary legal consideration is that if you do choose to allow public comment, that everyone has a fair opportunity and that no actions are taken based on viewpoints or positions expressed. And so long as that is administered fairly, which of course it will be, then those restrictions on number of speakers and duration of presentation is appropriate.
This is Commissioner Marshall, and I think if there's a way to accommodate the public that wants to be at this meeting, we should try to do so.
Could,
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer, could the chief ask how many want to speak? Would that be?
Is that possible? Great idea.
I've just received some information from outside that potentially we have 9 on the list right now.
Oh, 9?
That want to speak.
Oh.
So, we also have Brian Holmes has joined the meeting. I wanted to just make you aware that Brian Holmes, or Dr. Holmes, has joined the meeting as well.
Let them in one one by one.
Yeah, we can accommodate all them. But my next question is, should we limit it 2 or 3 minutes? This is Mayor Osterman.
Commissioner Marshall, I would say 2 minutes under the circumstances.
I'm in favor of that.
Favor of that?
This is Commissioner Ryan. I have absolutely no problem with that.
Okay. Okay, with that said, we will have the first one up, and it'll be a 2-minute limit.
You time us,
Who's
Marcus?
timekeeping?
Marcus. He just got nominated.
Hello, good afternoon. This is, I need your name and address and title.
It's Mary Boyard, in Chapman, Kansas.
Okay, and we're limiting it to 2 minutes, so. And you'll probably have to speak closer to the mic. It's hard to hear.
It's hard to breathe.
Yes.
One moment. Actually, I'm going to come and turn on your mic for you real quick.
And after he does that, could we ask you to repeat your name?
Yes.
It's on the list out there, by the way.
Oh,
We don't
I'm
have
going
a
to check it,
list.
Marcus.
She's taking names and addresses out there, so you
All right.
have it.
Test, test.
We haven't, yeah, she'll just have to send us the list.
Yeah, send us a list, but ask the name.
Yes,
Are we ready?
yes, go ahead.
Okay. Under what constitutional authority does a governor, a city manager, or any elected official have authority to make decisions for my health care? For my right to choose? Does the right to choose only extend to those who want an abortion, or is that right for every citizen? If I had stage 4 cancer, would you tell me how I have to treat it? Or would that be left up to me as my right to self-govern? You want to fine me for not wearing a mask that does not prevent anyone from getting the virus. That's you imposing your fears on the rest of society to take away my God-given right to choose. On September 16, 2020, the CDC stated that of the 161,392 death cases, only 6% were actually caused by the virus alone. You do the math. That's 94% of people who died with COVID. If the mask works, why social distance? If social distancing works, why the mask? If all of it works, why are people still getting it? If you choose to wear a mask, you believe it works, then why don't you not worry about me not wearing one? The flu, the size of the flu is only 0.08 microns. CDC is known for decades that the flu is transmitted person to person, yet they never mandate a mask. Do you know that COVID is only 0.125 microns? The virus is transmitted through droplets. And so if you're coughing and you're doing any of this, that's why they recommend the 6 feet, because it only goes so far and then it drops. These masks that you force us to wear to be able to speak in our public offices, the N95 mask, this one, only has an efficiency rate of 95%. A
That's 2
t-shirt
minutes.
has 10%. A cloth mask only has 10
Yes.
to 30%.
Well, thank you. The 2 minutes have passed, and we appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Thanks for letting me speak freely.
Right. Go that way. Did we lose Dr. Holmes in
That's-
trouble?
We appear to have lost Trevor and Dr. Holmes on the meeting, so I'm not sure.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm still here.
Okay, can you give us your name and address? And we are limiting this to 2 minutes, so
Okay.
thank
All
you.
right. Well, I'm Brian Harris, here in Abilene. I've been in Abilene, the president inside Abilene for 40 years. Been in Dixon County my entire life except for going to school. That's the only time I've been out of it. My experience, I've spent almost 30 years as dealing with immunology, dealing with the pharmaceutical world, and also dealing with immunologists, epidemiologists, and vaccinologists that we actually deal with. So understanding this disease and how we can work through it is been very lacking. For one thing, is that if you believe that this here, I won't take it off, but this here is going to stop the disease, it will not. If you've been told that, you've been lied to. There's no possible way it can stop it. The thing, and I'll bring an example up to this. Take a look at your sentences there. You see a sentence, you see a period. That period, you can stuff roughly 1 million viruses in that location. So you're going to tell me that the fiber in here is going to stop a virus? It won't. So that's something you got to keep in mind as well. The thing about it is that the only way we're going to actually get rid of this disease, we're not. It's here. It is a real disease. But it's a disease that we can manage and work through. And the only way we're going to actually put it and contain it, it's not through this, it's not through the social distancing, it's not through sanitizing, which are good practices, don't get me wrong. But the only way is for enough individuals that have antibodies in them to neutralize the disease, to neutralize the COVID-19 disease. So that is something we have. So the challenges are important. I know it keys up the asymptomatic type challenges. Asymptomatic challenge is the one that if I'm going to get exposed, that's the one I want to get exposed to. Because that's a non-virulent strain. It's very similar to how we make vaccines. Actually, as a modified live vaccine, that's how we make a vaccine. They grow it down to an avirulent stage, and that's how it's done. And that's how you would get from someone's asymptomatic.
And that's it. We've just reached 2 minutes, sir.
So anyway, whatever you do, be smart. Take away the fear, because the fear that we're creating in this whole environment is doing more damage to the mental side of our society, kind of anxiety, than anything this disease could ever do. So make sure you vote no. Don't spread and be a fear monger. Be a responsible citizen of this community. That's all I can ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. If you can state your name and address, and we are limiting it to 2 minutes. So go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm Don Nebelsick from Don's Tire and Supply. We have a store on the south end of Buckeye, 714 South Buckeye Avenue here in Abilene. I did write a letter to the commission yesterday, emailed in, and there's a lot of concerns other than what we have for our place out there, and I hope you listen well to this last speaker, because he's one
Excuse me, Don, could we
Yeah.
ask you to speak in the microphone better?
He's
Yes.
one person that has more knowledge to this than anybody I've ever heard, even on our national platforms. You know, our business works in an uncontrolled environment. We don't work in an air-conditioned workplace in our shop. You know, we have dust, we have dirt, we have sweat. It would be virtually impossible to be masked at all times down there. I, as a business owner, am not going to stop somebody to come into our place that prefers not to wear a mask to support our business. And you know, we need to use some common sense here. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. I realize we do have a problem, and you're trying to do the best things to your knowledge to help us get through this, but sometimes we do things that just don't make sense. And I personally feel this is one of them. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be willing to take them, answer them if I could.
Do you have anyone, I have a question. Do you have any one of your customers that say they won't go there because there's no mask worn?
You know, Mayor, we have customers from all over the state and out of state, and generally speaking, city and rural, you know, is about split. You know, people that live here and people that don't live here, 50-50. So a lot of them we don't see very often, but no, nobody has made that statement to me. Just more statements of the people that come in that feel it's not warranted and that it should not be done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, can you state your name and address? And we're limiting it to 2 minutes per person.
Chris West, 2173 Fair Road, Abilene. Can I take my mask down? Yes, no, okay, you can hear me?
Yes, just get closer to the mic.
Okay, I'm here to represent the businesses in Abilene. You know, there's not a family in town that supports Abilene more than my family. I mean, we love it here. Abilene's always supported us. I think the mandate to have businesses be the police of the mask mandate is a little extreme. If someone comes to my store and doesn't want to wear a mask and they tell me no and they walk past me, I'm not going to tackle them and throw them down. But I'm also not going to pay a fine because they chose not to wear that mask. I don't think that's the business owner's responsibility. We clean our store every night. We wipe our carts down every day. All of our employees have masks on. They never take those masks off unless they're off the clock and out of the store, hopefully. I try to monitor that. I think we do a good job of cleaning. We want to protect the city. I mean, we don't want people to get sick. Definitely we don't. I just don't think that we should be, you know, in charge of determining whether or not people wear masks in our grocery store. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Please state your name and address, and we are limiting it to 2 minutes per
All right.
person.
Hello, my name is Megan Armstrong. I live at 1173 Old 40 here in Abilene. I got wind of this mask mandate coming down about 48 hours ago. A little disappointed in the short notice of this particular meeting and the topic that it concerns. But I'd like to stick to some of the facts of the situation, and that's that the population of the United States is 328.2 million. We've had 7.8% of them test positive with a 0.03% death rate. Compared to Dickinson County, we have 19,000 residents with 160 people that have tested positive. That's a 0.8%. For those of you that aren't so hot with math, that's less than 1% in Dickinson County compared to the national rate of 7.8. We are well below the national percentages with the current rules and policies we have in place right now. I read through the preview of the mandate that was posted, and my curiosity is how long will this ordinance be in place? Will we base it on a certain number of people that are sick at a time? Will we base it on the percentage of the population that's gotten it? When does it come to an end? My next question is, where do the collected monies go? Are we going to benefit our citizens and provide masks for those that maybe can't? Are we going to help our businesses with those monies? That wasn't explained. If we approve fines for what we think keeps us safe right now and wearing a mask, what prevents the city of Abilene from fining me for not vaccinating later? It's a slippery slope of what we think is necessary with what kind of data we have available, and we just don't have the facts. Section 4 of item G states that athletes are exempt from wearing face masks while playing sports. That's inconsistent with the idea that wearing face masks and mandating them prevents the spread of COVID. If this were to pass, I would expect that particular item would be removed, as it's not consistent with the message you're sending. If passed, this also opens the city to a huge liability due to lawsuits. Manhattan is currently under lawsuit for $2.5 million from a local citizen because he was fined and arrested.
And that's 2 minutes there, ma'am.
All right. During a time of stress and uncertainty, the city is trying to turn a quick buck. It's unacceptable and detrimental to our community. It is my sincerest hope that you'll vote no to this ordinance today.
Thank you. Hi. Can you give
Hello.
us your name and address? And we are limiting it to 2 minutes, so
Okay.
thank you.
My name's Leanne Danner. I live at 1313 Northwest 4th Street in Abilene. I'm a registered nurse by profession. Last 18 years I've spent in medical oncology, hematology. I feel like the imposing of fines for mask mandates is not the answer to our numbers. I feel like we need to educate our community, our business owners, and support them in every way we can so they do not fail. I have the deep understanding for COVID-19 virus, people with low immune systems, chronic comorbidities and things like that.
Excuse me, can you
yeah.
talk closer to the mic,
So,
please?
the people with comorbidities and low immune systems, they're at higher risk for flu, influenza, other viruses and things like that. So I understand that, and I understand the fear that everybody has, but imposing fines on a mask mandate is not the answer for the numbers we have right now. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I just don't think it's appropriate to mandate fines for masks. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, can you give us your name and address? And we are limiting it to 2 minutes per person.
Okay. I'm Pearl Atchison. I live at 708 Northwest 10th Street here in town. I am a retired LSCSW, which is a qualified mental health therapist. I've retired for quite some time.
Excuse me, you're going to
Can you not
have
hear
it
me?
a little closer to the mic.
Okay. I say I'm a retired LSCSW. I live here in Abilene, and I would respectfully ask you guys to vote no. I'm not in support of fining for masks. I do think that it's important that we all be mindful of safety and people's health, and it's okay to wear masks in businesses and stuff, but I do think that this is kind of going over the line, fining people for not wearing masks in lineup and stuff. I do think that most people in our county are pretty respectful of wearing masks and stuff. I also think that masks increase people's anxiety. There's been increases in mental health issues, and some of the COVID, I'm not going to throw numbers at you, but I'm just basically not in support. I also think that it infringes upon people's rights when we start mandating, and I don't know where we draw the line. Do we mandate vaccinations? Do we mandate? I think that this is also a matter of American rights. So I would, once again, respectfully ask you to say no and to vote no. Like I said, I wear masks. I'm compliant with that, but I don't really see the need in, fining people. I think it ties up the police force. It ties up the courts. Eventually, at some point, it's unnecessary. And I thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi there.
Can you state your name and address? And we are limiting it to 2 minutes per
Sure.
person.
Kylie Higgins, since I am 6 feet away, am I allowed to take this off just when speaking?
At this time, no. Just talk closer to the mic,
Okay.
and then you can.
Kylie Higgins, 3125 Hawk Road in Abilene.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So as the fable goes, if you place a frog into cold water, you can slowly heat it to a boiling point, and the frog won't jump out. It won't sense its coming demise as the water heats up bit by bit. But if you throw a frog into boiling water, it will immediately jump out. I look around and I sense this looming oppression, the slow turning up of the heat. And so many are so willing to listen to the propaganda, eat it up, throw it around, and think it's they that are doing the good.
Cherishing our freedoms and wanting to hold the line and take a stand and to protect them is not selfish. This virus is real, but so is our way of life, and chipping away at it bit by bit, all in the name of trying to defeat something that cannot be stopped, is foolishness. This virus is real, and I am not anti-mask, but mandates and fines and turning neighbor against neighbor and creating more division amongst our community is not the answer. For children and young people, the common flu is much deadlier, and yet we are turning the schools and the lives of our kids just upside down over this. I pulled my kids from school not because I'm scared of this virus, but because I'm scared of what we're doing to them, and we have no clue of what we are actually doing. We humans were meant to hug each other. We're meant to fellowship freely. We're meant to express our emotions and see smiles. There is a time that we have to choose. We must understand that our freedom should not be infringed upon for any reason. If you vote to do this, to move to fines, you are turning up the water. You are boiling our freedoms bit by bit. So ask yourselves, when will this end? What is logically next? When a vaccine comes out, will you follow your weak logic of mandating for the public good, something that isn't scientifically proven or tested fully? Will you make it a mandate that people can't send their children to school without this rushed vaccine or shop in our local stores? Is this proposed vote to soothe a conscience, make you feel like you're doing something productive? The sad truth is that nobody gets out of this alive.
No.
Everybody will die at some
We've
point.
reached 2 minutes.
And one sentence. If I could live 100 years in a sterile environment wearing masks and never getting sick, but I'd have to turn in my neighbors like the SS Guard if they took off their masks, I would trade it in a heartbeat to live 40 years in Abilene in America of 8 months ago. So when in question, I just ask you to err in the side of freedom. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, can you state your name and address, and we are limiting it to 2 minutes a person?
Gotcha. Yes, my name is Scott Hargrave, and my address is 1601 North CUNY. I want to start by saying that in the beginning, this was a very serious issue. And I also believe that it was serious because no one knew anything about it. Everyone was running scared, but things have changed. I know of many people that have contracted this and heard from others with family members that have, with little or no symptoms. One thing I'm curious about is how this all came about. And I don't know if you can answer that now or not, whose idea it was to mandate this thing. But I think it's ridiculous. And I can tell you that the amount of people we have out here does not in any way reflect how many people disagree with this. Not in any way, shape, or form. And I believe that if this is pushed through, you're going to have a lot of lawsuits, and I'll be one of them. I have rights, and you folks that are wanting to implement this are trying to trample my rights, and I'm not going to go for it. I think that's about all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Hello, can you give us your name and address, and we're limiting it to 2 minutes a person?
Yes, this is Connie Bruner. I live at 305 North Vine, and I've been part of the community for the last 5 years. I'm a business owner, so I'm going to address this in a different situation and in a different way. We are, as a small businesses, we are all struggling. I have a business downtown, and it just makes me laugh that there are no humans on our sidewalks. There are no people in our stores. And now we're going to put masks on any poor lost soul that walks down the sidewalk. We have no people on our streets. What has happened with this pandemic has hit small business so amazingly hard that most of us aren't going to make it. To make this more difficult in a small community is beyond disbelief. I had thought we were as successful as South Dakota. We had managed to take this issue and make it work. We have one death in our county right now, one death, and he probably died of a heart attack. I mean, the medical people would know better than me, but that's what I've heard. This is overkill. This is unnecessary, and it's unfair to our community. I think there's a lot of people that would like to see our city government turned around, and it is a responsibility of our commissioners. We pick these commissioners. We want them in charge. We want the city manager following what the commissioners suggest rather than the other way around. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Hi, can you state your name and address? And we are limiting it to 2 minutes a person.
Okay, it's on the sheet outside there.
It
I
is,
wrote it down.
okay.
It is. Sorry, I'm like shaken like a leaf because that's what this does to me. I don't care seeing you guys on it. It doesn't bother me, not one bit. But for me personally, this can't happen because I want to pass out. I can't do it. Okay, so the damage that we're doing to our kids. When I see on Facebook a mother write that my child is petrified to let anybody know that she sat next to somebody that tested positive because she's failing her classes from the time that she did online before when we were shut down. And she's scared to death to be quarantined at home because she can't do it. She needs to be in school. Our kids are young. They got strong immune systems, and they need to get it, and we need to get on with it. I know everybody's talking about mass gatherings has caused this. I've had more, conservatively, 1,500 people. And we have 8 cases from one wedding. That's a less than 0.005% of a percent. So before you all make your votes and start fining people and demanding, ask yourselves personally where you've been. Have you worn a mask at the Trump train rally? I don't think so. Did we fly somewhere out of state?
Yes.
And drive in somewhere else because you didn't want to follow the 14-day quarantine rule?
That's false information,
And,
so
well,
at least get the right information.
okay, whatever. Before you can impose fines and do something on the people of Abilene, make sure that we're not being hypocrites and follow the rules ourselves. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you for not insisting. Thank you.
Hello, can you give us your name and address, please?
Yes. My name is Connie Covington, and I live at 953 2400 Avenue, Abilene. I moved here about a year ago. One of the reasons I left California was because of the regulations. I don't understand why you guys would put such regulations on us and take away our freedom. We're not stupid. We've lived this long without your help. Why now do you think it's so important for you to make a decision for us that's going to affect our daily lives? Not only our lives, but the lives of the people around us. It's not fair. It's not right. One of the reasons I left California is because they decided all of a sudden now that we're going to have water problems because they didn't handle their money right. And so you're only allowed to water your yard so many times a day. And if you saw your neighbor watering their yard, then you were supposed to call and report that. That's the democratic way of California. Is that what it's going to be here? When you see somebody without a mask, are you supposed to call somebody? Is that coming next? Can you make us take a vaccine? I mean, what is the problem? Why is it so important that people cannot take care of themselves? Why is it so important that you screw up the numbers? I had 2 friends go in for COVID test. The line was so long, they never made it. They turned around and went home. 3 days later, they got a letter in the mail saying they tested positive. That's happening all over. I mean, you think we're so stupid we don't know that? You think we don't talk, we don't hear these things, we don't know these things? And now you're going to tell us that we need a mask for what? I went to the store down here in Abilene. Lady behind the counter had a mask on. She asked me if I cared if she removed it. I said no. She took it off and she had a terrible rash all over her face. She said her doctor said it's because of her mask. I have another friend whose lung completely collapsed. They couldn't hardly breathe. They rushed him to the hospital. The problem was the mask.
Ma'am, we've reached 2 minutes.
I've reached 2 minutes? Jeeper, that was fast. Okay, so here's your mask, you know. What good is it doing? Are you asking yourself that? Do you care? If you care about your public, if you care about your constituents, do not try to mandate a mask. Leave it to the people and let them decide for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, can you give us your name and address, please?
Lorraine Miller, 226 South Factory Enterprise. I was scared to death to come in here and talk, but first of all, I want to ask, what is a pandemic? Can anybody answer that? What is a pandemic? A pandemic is when people are dying. Dying. I mean, you get sick, you die. I work in the medical field. I work for a doctor. I work in a hospital. We've only had 2 patients, actually 1, that was in the hospital with COVID. Overweight, smoker, diabetic. The insurance kicked him out after 2 days, said he wasn't sick enough. They've had brought in an extra one of those trailers for people. Not 1 patient went in, not 1. All our COVID patients are home. They're not sick. So to me, this is ridiculous. We shouldn't have to be forced to wear a mask. My boss says, he tells all our patients take them off. They're like, are you sure? Everybody is just scared to death. And the pandemic is fear, not the COVID.
Thank you. Is that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I asked multiple times and nobody indicated that they wish to address the commission.
Okay, thank you. All right, and before we continue, I should let everyone know that there was 270 emails sent to Penny Soka, and they are here. And I have reviewed them, and I know that all the other commissioners have been given it through their emails. Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, and then next is, from what I understand, Dr. Holmes would like to speak. Is there a limit on his input, as we do at everyone else, or what do we do?
Is he an invited guest?
He
requested to be here.
Yes. He was asked to be here. Okay. Sorry.
I apologize. I did not know that question was directed to me. I believe that you have complete latitude to allow Dr. Holmes as much time as you wish to allow.
And also, I'm sure the commissioners would like probably to ask him specific questions. So, all right, we'll just go ahead with Dr. Holmes.
Yes, thank you. I'm just going to kind of follow some of the things that were said. The law, if you look up Kansas statutes, KSA 65-119, 65-202, 65-129B are the ones that we're using under emergency orders to basically, in public health, is trying to mitigate the spread of the disease like coronavirus. And they're the ones that give us the authority to act as we have been. I know people don't like masks. I don't like them either. I have to wear them all day in my job. And I do that to protect me and my patients. They're not 100% effective, and so that's where social distancing comes in, to try to keep that 6 feet distance, because we think that's where, or how far most of the time these viruses that are in the droplets in our breath will travel. But people talk about the mask can't filter it out. That's, you know, it's not aerosolized, it's not in the air when it comes out of us so much as it is in droplets, and so that's where the mask will capture it. This is definitely not influenza. I can't believe anybody's even trying to compare it to that, because it isn't. People, when you speak, you cough, you sneeze, anything, a sigh even, can release virus into the air. You know, people talk about herd immunity. The other lady said that we've only had like 7.8% people in our United States get the virus. You know, herd immunity, they talk about 70% have to get it. That's a whole lot of people. And if 7.8% have only had it so far, and we've already got over 200,000 deaths in the United States, how many more deaths are we willing to let happen? They talk about you need to get immune and just get it over with to have the antibodies. The problem is, with this coronavirus, we don't know how long the antibodies last and how effective they are. They think maybe they might last 3 months, but we don't know for sure. People talk about getting an asymptomatic strain, that's from somebody that's asymptomatic spreader, and that's the one you want. You don't know that. There's no data that proves that. That's just hearsay. And we're going to have to wait and give us more time to experience this to really know that. Someone talked about anxiety killing people. I've never seen anxiety listed on a death certificate as a cause of death. People asked how long this order should be in place. I think certainly it would be time limited, but based on how long the pandemic lasts. And so it could be longer than 6 months. We don't know. Mr. West encountered or indicated that he didn't feel like it was his responsibility of his business to stop people if they're not going to wear a mask. But what do they do when somebody walks in that's smoking, or somebody doesn't have their shirts or shoes on? Do they stop them and make them put those on? Ordinances work for masking. If you look at the data in Wichita and Salina, you can see that they have a decreasing trend overall in cases. Somebody mentioned that this is about making money with fines. That's far from the truth. The smoking ordinance that we had in place 16 years ago, I believe, had fines similar to this, and I don't believe there's been one levied since. I don't see where requiring masks stops anybody from coming in your door for business or stops you from doing your business. It keeps your doors open, if anything else, because it helps keep lower transmission rates of the virus so that your employees are well enough to stay at work. The other problem is if you get one employee sick and they're saying they can be, another employees can be identified with 10 minutes, 6 feet distance, then those people have to quarantine. And that's not a suggestion, that's a mandate by the state. People talk about freedom and oppression. This is not about that. This is about public health and public health only. This is not a political issue. It's not a party issue. It's not a race issue. It's about trying to save lives, and that's not a fear statement. People have died. If you look at the trends of deaths consistently in the last 5-6 years, you'll see they follow the same path. But then if you look at this year, it's higher. And the only way we can explain that is COVID-19. They talked about death certificates and 6%. That's not true. 6% only had COVID-19. That is an overworked provider who I'm sure was overwhelmed, probably in New York City, and they just wanted to fill it out and move to the next patient. COVID-19 itself doesn't kill somebody. It's COVID-19 with respiratory failure, kidney failure, liver failure, heart attacks, strokes, pulmonary emboli. It causes clotting cascades and problems that way. It doesn't just cause a common cold in everybody, and nobody knows who's going to get worse. Now, if you have other comorbidities like diabetes and obesity and stuff like that, you are more likely to have a worse disease process. But letting this virus just run its course, that is not what our job is as public health. We have tried to educate the public about this as best we could. I've done radio spots since March every Wednesday morning. The KDHE has their site, CDC has their site. We have the website for the health department, for the county. I've made myself available to a ton of people that have asked questions. I think, we have given the people of Abilene and the county at large, really, the chance to show that they can do the right thing. And that's to protect each other and help each other stop this disease process and help each other to help the economy keep going by keeping people healthy and not sick. But we have seen a mass failure of that across the board. You're seeing businesses close now because they're not wearing masks at work. They get one person in there that gets sick, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the others need to quarantine. And so it just blossoms. People talked about there's not been any deaths in Dickinson County. I've heard that over and over again. There have been 2 deaths related to COVID. One was from Shawnee County, so they counted in their county, not ours. So ours is listed as 1. And this case was COVID related. People can have diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, whatever, obesity, but it doesn't mean they're going to die this year. But when you add COVID to it, it prematurely causes deaths across the United States. And we've now seen that over 200,000 times in the U.S. And our numbers are rising here in Kansas as well. One lady said that a collapsed lung was caused by a mask. That's preposterous. There's no way that would happen. Today we've tested 44. The hospital has limited supplies of and manpower and time to test everybody we want to. That's why the county has come together, and we have procured 1,000 tests to do a mass test for COVID this Saturday from 10 to 2 at the Armory in Abilene. And the county's going to run it, and we're going to these are the PCR tests from the state, so that's the best test we can possibly get, and they go back to the state to get run. It's open to Dickinson County residents or people that live outside the county but live in Dickinson County. If you have symptoms, we want those folks or those that have been exposed to a known case that are asymptomatic. But we're not asking people to come by that just want to test for the heck of it. We want to make sure that we are using those resources judiciously. As far as any other questions or concerns, I would just ask the city commissioners, I know you're in a difficult spot. This is a heated thing, and it really shouldn't be. I think we should all be on the same page with this to try to mitigate disease and not let people get sick. I don't want this to get to the point where we're having more deaths. That's certainly not our goal, or even hospitalizations for that matter. Granted, some people don't get as sick as others, but that's a genetic thing. That is a somewhat of a race thing, because we do know that African American and Latinos tend to have worse outcomes. But we don't know who's going to get sick and how sick. And just because the kids aren't getting sick doesn't mean they're not going to spread it to their parents, to their in-laws, to their grandparents, to their coworkers, and it just keeps going. We know that there's about a 4 to 6 week delay in seeing deaths related to a COVID outbreak. So we're not even going to know how bad it is for quite a while still. I think you have to kind of ask yourself, where do you want to stand on this issue for a public health aspect? Where will it weigh on your conscience, a year from now, 2 years from now? How are we going to look back and see how we voted? We have a county mandate that our commissioners were wise enough to pass. It's the same one the governor issued. Only 9 counties were brave enough to do that in Kansas, and I was proud to say that we were one. However, the Attorney General and how Senate Bill 2016 cut its knees out from underneath it and basically said it's not enforceable. I was asked by the county attorney to see what I could do because she doesn't have the manpower or time and resources to litigate this, which would have to be a civil penalty if you've took somebody to court or to task for not wearing masks at their place. So I'm asking for the city's help to try to give us at least some teeth with the fines. You know, I looked at Salinas, I think they're 25, 50, and 100 for the first, second, and third. I can't remember what ours is proposing, but you know, it's people are not going to turn each other in, and you don't have the police going around looking for people not wearing masks. They will educate, just like they do if they, you know, with seatbelt laws or with other folks that, you know, there's lots of warnings that happen. And so I would see the same thing happen with masking. You know, it's not like they're going to go up to a certain business, see that they're not wearing masks, and start issuing citations. There's going to be an education process, a talk, you know, have a discussion and say, would you please comply? And it would only be in instances of continued non-compliance that I would see it be necessary to issue a fine. You know, the only other thing that we have to try to mitigate this that I can do as a health officer would be to close a business for non-compliance until they can comply. And that is not what I want to do. I don't want to, I want our economy to be as strong as possible. I want our kids in school. I want our life to be as normal as possible. But people have to realize we're still in a global pandemic. A pandemic doesn't necessarily mean everybody's dying. It means that a disease is here and it's uncontrolled spread across the globe, and it's easily spread. So, you know, I hear the anger in people's voice. I hear the anxiety in their voice. I hear, you know, people talking about my right, my right, my right. But I'm trying to protect those who can't speak for themselves, the people in the nursing homes, the people that are too scared to come up and talk in front of you guys because they're afraid of a backlash. I can't tell you how many messages I've had today personally in favor of this because they know it's the right thing to do. And just because they're not brave enough to come in front of the city commission or send an email doesn't mean that their voice doesn't matter. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Holmes, Commissioner Schaefer. We, at our Monday meeting, we talked about an end date or end time or some way to terminate this ordinance. And I'd heard, you know, in the news reports about transmissibility rates, and then in today's paper, I think they used the term positivity rate. So I'm wondering, is there some measure that's recommended that we could put in the ordinance, and then at that point we could suspend the ordinance?
Thank you for that question. I have not seen that discussed anywhere else, but my own personal thought would be to have verbiage in there that basically discusses that you know, this will be in effect until it has been determined that this pandemic has subsided by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and a mask ordinance is no longer necessary.
And then another question, this is really a question. What's the difference between what was happening February through August, and now we have community spread?
I think it's because it was coastal mainly. If you think about where the Chinese folks that had this initial virus that spread globally, I don't think a lot of them come to Kansas, especially when you look at the cultural diversity of our place compared to the coast. You know, they're going to where the relatives are. And we've known that for months that this has been somewhat of a slow creep to the rural areas, but now it's here. And it's past time, really, to act.
And maybe one more. I was in Lindsborg today and went to the grocery store to get some lunch, and they had a sign on the door that said, you can't come in here without a mask, city ordinance at Lindsborg. And I went in with my mask on, and I didn't see anybody in there without a mask.
Yeah, there are plenty of other states. There's been lots of stories from people that have gone on vacation to Colorado and come back and say, wow, everybody's wearing a mask out there. It's no big deal. Everybody's, buying into it and compliant, and it's wonderful. It reminds me of the same stories we heard before the tobacco ordinance, and when we ended up getting the passage of that, people would go to other communities and be like, it's so refreshing to be able to go to a restaurant and not have to breathe in secondhand smoke. And it's just a very similar issue. We're all red-blooded Americans. We all want to be John Wayne. No one wants to tell anybody what else to do. No one wants to be told what to do. I get that. I have that in me as well. And I'm not here before you for any kind of personal agenda other than public health and trying to save lives and decrease not just mortality or deaths, but morbidity, disease related to this virus, because we don't know what the long-term effects are going to be of it right now. Even the Kansas State High School Association has requirements for all the students that are positive. They have to have a return to play before they can go back to normal sports, they have to be cleared by a provider. They just can't jump right back into it because there's a high rate of myocarditis that they're seeing. And myocarditis is an inflammation of the heart wall muscle. What that does is it weakens the heart and it leads to stretching of the wall where the heart enlarges and becomes what we call having cardiomyopathy. And what that does is that stretches the electrical fibers of our heart that normally are in a certain zone, so to speak, and then you end up getting irregular heart rhythms that can lead to sudden cardiac death. So we don't know the long-term effects of this right now, but we're trying to do the best we can. There's a Dr. Stites with KU. His favorite saying is, we are building the plane as we fly it. And unfortunately, that's where we're at. But we're, public health, we're trying to do the best job we can to protect people. And despite what they think, again, I don't have some sort of odd agenda to try to control people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions for Dr. Holmes?
Dr. Holmes, this is Commissioner Ryan.
Yeah.
I know we kind of discussed this last night over the phone, and once again, I appreciate you reaching out to me as I expressed that last night. I asked the question of what, after the county commission approved the initial, or I guess approved the enforcement of the governor's executive order, what they did after that. And I know the natural deflection is to say that due to the Attorney General's statement, it appeared that it was unenforceable, as well as that it was difficult to enforce. I believe you were discussing that with our county attorney. I guess in some of the commentary that was getting sent to the commission, some folks didn't realize that the county's mandate included Abilene. Some folks didn't even know the county had passed a mandate. So I guess it begs the question, did they slap the horse and let it run without actually trying to catch it and actually trying to communicate what they were doing and informing the public? And I think that could have been very helpful. And I think that would have really helped increase people actually following the mandate if there was a little bit of education to the public from the county commission itself. It I don't want to, assume this, but from our stance here, at least from mine, I won't speak for anyone else, but from my stance, it almost feels like the city commission is now being used as a scapegoat because the county commission wasn't broadcasting what their intentions were after they passed that mandate, because naturally they got a lot of heat. I just think a lot of these issues could have been curtailed with some public education and communication from them.
Well, you'd have to ask them that. I mean, we posted it online. I believe the paper had it in the newspaper printed. It's available on the county website for both the health department and the county website. I've been on, like I said, the radio 8:30 in the morning every Wednesday since March, and I'm not sure what else to do other than maybe a mass mailing or something, but that costs quite a bit of money to do that, unless we had like a listserv for people. But people need to get out and kind of educate themselves a little bit about this as far as what our ordinances are. And I know it's not easy to know when something's always changed, but I don't feel like the city is a scapegoat by any means. And take a little bit of offense to that, actually. But not knowing that Abilene is in the county, I can't explain that necessarily. I flew to Alaska during this and caught a lot of flack for that. I'll take that heat, that's fine. But I did it as safely as possible. I wore my mask the whole time. I socially distanced, and I did not have to quarantine because I did not go to a place that required that, or come back through a place that required that. And I'm an essential healthcare worker, and I can go to work and do my job even if I am in quarantine. And I just don't think people understand that, and that's fine. I guess that's why I'm saying that now. But I thought it was a little bit laughable when people thought I left the country to go to Alaska. Maybe that's a similar issue with thinking that Abilene is not in the county.
This is Chris Osterman, and my question is, I know the county has the ordinance, but from what I'm reading, our city ordinance can't even be issued unless there is a penalty included in that. And did the county, and I know, Dr. Holmes, you probably can't answer to that, but did the county have penalties when they issued theirs? Because for ours, what I read is that there had to be penalties included in an ordinance. So did the county just not include that? Or, I don't know.
Basically, I'm sorry if I go ahead.
No,
Chris,
go ahead. No,
finish.
that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. Go ahead.
They basically passed the ordinance that the governor put out. So if there needed to be any other fines or anything in it, I would think that the governor would have had her legal team resolve that issue prior to it being printed.
Okay. This is Commissioner Marshall, and I'm not sure if this is for you, Dr. Holmes, or for our city manager. I was under the assumption, and it's been stated, that we've been following the state and the county. The city has, so I don't understand this. Aren't we following everything?
Since the beginning, we have, this is Jane Foltz, city manager. Yes, when the executive order came out and Dixon County adopted that executive order, we stated early on that we as a city of Abilene were following that mandate. Yes.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Dr. Holmes at this time?
Dr. Holmes, just one final thing. This is Commissioner Schaefer. Is this a true statement? I wear my mask to protect you. You wear your mask to protect me.
True, with the caveat that your mask also protects yourself. That's why it's called personal protective equipment.
Well, I make that statement. I heard there was a former medical professional in town that said that the mask doesn't offer protection for me.
Well, anybody that says masks don't work or that masks don't help protect each other simply doesn't know the data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions, thank you, Dr. Holmes.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay. And so that closes the public comments and communications. And next item is consider the ordinance 20-3390, an ordinance requiring the wearing of masks or other face coverings in public spaces within the city of Abilene, Kansas. Do I have any discussion?
Do you want a motion?
I said discussion, I'm sorry. Well, do you want a motion without, and then we'll discuss after the motion?
It's usually how that goes. So.
All right.
Madam Mayor, Commissioner Schaefer, I move we approve an ordinance requiring the wearing of masks or other face covering in public spaces within the city of Abilene, Kansas. Ordinance number 20-3390.
Okay, do I have a second? I'm repeating, do I have a second for the motion to approve the ordinance 20-3390? Without a second? I'm sorry?
Motion fails.
Motion fails.
Mayor Osterman, may I say something?
Yes.
I think part of the problem with this whole ordinance has been, as Brandon alluded to, it was brought on so fast. We weren't even told we were going to consider an ordinance. We just got here and the resolution was written up. I think, back to the education, if the public had known it was coming, maybe reactions would be better. I read this policy very, very thoroughly. I sat up till 11, 12 o'clock the other night going through it. As a city commissioner, I think it's overreaching my authority.
Okay. Do I have any other comments?
This is Commissioner Ryan. I also want to say that I believe this ordinance, that if it was passed, I think it would have been a gross overreach of this governing body. I really do. There's a fine line, and I think for my view on that line, I think this was just a little bit over it. I had a lot of issue with the fines being imposed, and then learning today that this ordinance actually could not even be a legal ordinance in the city of Abilene without a fine. I just heard that in the meeting. That really cemented it for me. I was looking at stuff online last night, and a quote I came across, and it was kind of fitting, and wasn't looking for anything or anything. It just came across the screen. It said, "Nothing is so permanent as a temporary government program." And that was from Milton Friedman, and I think that's absolutely applicable to this ordinance that we just looked at. So, thank you.
This is Chris Osterman, Mayor. I was really surprised we had this ordinance in front of us and already written up, and from my knowledge, it's that the city commissioners are to be brought the information to us so that way we can consider what, if there was an ordinance to be written and how it was supposed to be written. That was my major concern, that it was already done. That's not the way the process should be working. It should be, we should be getting the information and seeing if we need to move on with an ordinance, and that didn't happen. So that shortens our process, and it makes it uncomfortable, at least for myself. So with that said, city manager reports. Jane Foltz, city manager.
Thank you. I have nothing. Oh, Trevor's on there.
Madam Mayor, this is Commissioner Witt. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Just wanted to chime in just because I'm absent in person, but still present to this meeting, wanting to relay my thoughts. After doing all these comments, and the first thing I actually want to say is I was very impressed by the community response in how many people had actually very well articulated their opinion, and it wasn't just general ranting, but really thought-provoking comments. And I just want to say, just a thank you out to our community for participating in this process. Very encouraging for me to work through that. And with that, I think in this issue of wearing masks, it needs to be something of social accountability and not legal accountability. I think that's the best way to approach it in a situation where people do have such strong opinions one way or another into it. And then with all this too, I want to thank our professionals approaching this situation of uncertainty. We're making decisions and with uncertainty in front of us, and there's certain risks associated with those decisions one way or another. And so I think with our current status and where people see information and where I see the information, this decision today is worth the risk that's in front of us, and that as this situation continues to play out, we will continue to assess it and look at those risks that are in front of us. So with that concludes my comment.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Witt. Since there is no other items, adjournment.
So moved.
I will second that motion.
It's been moved and second to adjourn the special meeting for September 23rd, 2020. Roll call vote. Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Mayor Osterman. Yes. Thank you.